disability, which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Marge Lover, and for the next hour, I'll be reading from the current issues of the Lockport Union-Sun Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. So we're going to read from the Thursday, February 19th issue, and it looks like the Somerset Solar Project looks for IDA incentives. The proposed 125 MW Somerset Solar Project may have received its city permit from the state in 2024, but it is now looking for county incentives to help fund it. Project developer AES is seeking $12.5 million in Niagara County Industrial Development Agency tax exemptions for its planned $276.6 million array. Those incentives include $3.5 million in property tax exemptions, $8.6 million in sales tax exemptions, and $414,932 in mortgage recording tax exemptions. The development would result in $14.6 million in revenue towards its tax jurisdictions, with $5.8 million as part of the host community payment and $8.75 million for other tax payments. It would be subject to the state real property tax law 575B, which mandates that solar projects generating at least 1 megawatt will be assessed at a discounted rate. The proposed project will play a key role in advancing this market transformation and significantly signify the responsiveness of the private sector to the state's agricultural goals for more renewable energy generation. The company application for the IDA reads, construction and operation of the facility will contribute to meeting New York State energy policy targets. This February 19th issue, police captain was suspended. Buffalo Police Department conducting an internal review related to the fatal Sanborn shooting case. Well, the Buffalo Police Department has suspended a captain who spoke with Officer Lance Woods at a city station house hours before he was charged in the shooting death of his wife in Sanborn. Buffalo police and city officials confirmed the captain had been suspended with pay pending an internal review of her actions on Saturday evening, when she had an in-person discussion with Woods at the D District Station House on Hurdle Avenue. Buffalo officials, citing police department policy, are not releasing the captain's name. The department remains committed to accountability, due process, and maintaining public trust, officials said in a statement released Wednesday afternoon by City of Buffalo Director of Communications Ian Ott. Consistent with department policy, the department does not comment on the details of active investigations. The Buffalo Police Department is conducting a comprehensive internal investigation to determine whether departmental policies, procedures, and professional standards were followed by personnel involved in this matter. Woods was arrested and charged on Sunday with second-degree murder after police found his wife dead inside her home on Buffalo Street in Sanborn. Lewiston police officers performed a welfare check for 35-year-old Alexis Scrozalis at the home just after 5 p.m. Saturday, but apparently didn't make any contact with anyone at the time. In our next issue, we have Canal Fest is moving to North Tonawonda's Gratwick Park. So the popular Canal Fest, which has stretched along both sides of the Erie Canal and the Tonawondas, will be moving entirely to North Tonawanda this year. Organizers and the city confirmed the festival will move all of its events to Gratwick Park along the Niagara River. The 8-day-long festival takes place from July 19th through the 26th, and the North Tonawanda Common Council approved the change at its meeting on Tuesday. Festival Vice President Rick Mayer said when he and President Peter Chenier met with the Tonawanda Common Council, they were told they would be responsible for covering event costs this year, which included police and public works overtime costs. They speculated the amount could be as much as $70,000 this year for the 8 total days, something they could not afford, having paid as much as $35,000 in years past. They also gave themselves a deadline of Wednesday last week to include Tonawanda for this year. When that deadline came and went, without a decision from that city council, they knew they had to change venues. So North Tonawanda has always been open for us to have the event down there, Mayor said. They're able to get away with having rides on Tremont and Columbia Streets in North Tonawanda last year, but the city was not happy with them, having told them not to put rides in the downtown area. This will allow us to enhance the event because we'll have the whole campus in one area, Chester said. And then there was a fire on 14th Street. The Red Cross is assisting the residents. They're looking for the cause of the early morning fire. The Niagara Falls fire investigators. They responded to the home at 2327 14th Street about 3:30 a.m. Wednesday with Falls Police and AMR ambulance crew to find flames rising from the second floor of the home. Firefighters stretched multiple hose lines into the house and were ultimately able to extinguish the fire. The scene was left in the care of the fire investigator. Other fire crews cleared the scene about 5:30. The only occupant of the home was able to escape the fire without injury, and he's being assisted by the Red Cross. Now, Niagara County's rabies vaccination schedule. The Niagara County Health Department has released the dates and locations of its 2026 free rabies immunization clinics. State law requires all cats, dogs, and ferrets to have current rabies vaccinations from 4 months of age onward. Pet owners must make an appointment to bring their pets to any county clinic. Registration will open on the first business day of the week of the clinic. Go to www.niagaracounty.gov/rabies clinic or call 716-439-7490. Note the paperwork and pet containment requirements. This is the clinic schedule. April 11th, 9 a.m. to noon at the Town of Somerset Highway Garage at 8700 Haight Road. June 6th from 9 a.m. to noon at Hyde Park Oasis Sentinel Pavilion, 911 Robbins Drive, Niagara Falls. July 11th, 9 a.m. to noon at the Town of Wilson Highway Garage at 13356 Wilson Cambria Road. September 12th, 9 a.m. to noon at the Town of Lockport Highway Department at 6560 Dysinger Road. On December 5th, 9 a.m. to noon at the City of North Tonawanda Public Works Department. That's at 758 Erie Avenue. And the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service exists for members of the community who are blind or slightly impaired. Every day, volunteers read newspapers, books, magazines, and other printed materials over the air on a 24/7 basis, as well as online to any internet-connected devices. The service is free. So for information how it works, call 716-821-5555 or visit nfrradioreading.org. And in brief, the local 686 retirees are fielding officer nominations. So the retirees chapter of Local 686 UAW Executive Board election for nominations for all board offices will be held March 3rd. Any chapter member who plans to run for an office will be out of town on that day, must notify himself, nominate himself or herself via certified letter by February 25th. The letter must be mailed to the Local 686 UAW Retiree Election Committee. And then there's a Buffalo Niagara Boat Show opened today, so that was on the 17th. And then there's the Niagara Community Health Department's free 6-week chronic pain self-management workshop will be offered at Lockport Memorial Hospital at 601 Shimer Road beginning on March 23rd. The workshop, slated at 9:30 a.m. to noon on Mondays, covers both the physical and emotional aspects of managing chronic pain. It is designed to provide participants with the skills to manage pain on a day-to-day basis. Topics include exercise, healthy eating, pain management, and dealing with concerns such as fatigue, sleep problems, difficult emotions, and weight loss. Individuals with chronic pain and caregivers of persons with chronic pain are welcome. News of Falls Mayor says a new Rapids Theater owner is expected soon. So in Niagara Falls, some good news is coming on the ongoing revitalization of Main Street in Niagara Falls, according to Mayor Robert Rustano. During an appearance on Wednesday on the Viewpoint talk show hosted by Tom Darrow on WEBR AM 1440, Rustano said that the city is closing in on an agreement with a private developer for the Rapids Theater. The indoor concert and event center has been closed since 2024. As part of the entire Main Street revitalization, there have been a couple of groups that have gone through it, several groups, I should say, Rustano said. The last two have gone through and really done a real in-depth engineering review of the building to see what would it take in terms of renovation. So we're pretty confident that we would have that building in the hands of a private developer within the next couple of weeks. The city's Urban Renewal Agency, with authorization from the Niagara Falls City Council, agreed in July of 2024 to use $1.5 million in tribal casino fundings to buy 39 Main Street properties, still owned at the time by an investment group called the Blue Cardinal Capital. While the Rapids Theater was not owned by the same entity, it was acquired by the URA as part of the deal. So the theater, which was built under the name the Bellevue Theater in 1921, most recently operated in a venue for primarily concerts under its former owner, Lewiston businessman John Hutchins. The venue closed amid a federal investigation into the use of funds from COVID-related loan programs by Hutchins and a business partner. Some other news in agribusiness. A transportation department says that hundreds of driving schools must close. More than 550 commercial driving schools in the U.S., the trained truckers and bus drivers must close after investigators found they employed unqualified instructors, failed to adequately test students, and had other safety issues, the Federal Transportation Department announced Wednesday. The move marks the Trump administration's latest effort to improve safety in the trucking industry. And unlike its actions last fall to decertify up to 7,500 schools that included many defunct operations, this latest step is focused on active schools inspectors identified as having significant shortcomings, and 1,426 site visits completed in December. Locally, the announcement impacts programs in the Frontier and Alden school districts in Erie County. The department has been aggressively going after states that handed out commercial driver's licenses to immigrants who shouldn't have qualified for them even since a fatal crash in August. A truck driver who transported Security Secretary Sean Duffy says they weren't authorized to be in the U.S., made an illegal U-turn, and caused a crash in Florida that killed 3 people. Other fatal crashes since then, including one in Indiana that killed 4 earlier this month, have only heightened concern. Duffy said 448 schools failed to meet basic safety standards. Inspectors found such deficiencies as employing unqualified instructors, failing to test student skills or teach them how to handle hazardous materials, and using the wrong equipment to teach drivers. Another 109 schools removed themselves from the registry of schools when they learned inspections were planned. American families should have confidence that our school bus and truck drivers are following every letter of the law, and that starts with receiving proper training before getting behind the wheel, Duffy said. Olympic reports. So in Milan, before the puck dropped on the U.S.-Canadian rivalry series 3 months ago, and before the Americans rounded through their first six games at the Milan Cortina Olympics, Hillary Knight looked ahead to the gold medal final with hopes and anticipation. How fitting it would be if the U.S. captain told the Associated Press in early November for her Olympic career to end with one more showdown against Canada. It's best on best. I think people really like it when our two teams face off, Knight said. It's a testament to the work that both have put in off ice and on ice. So yeah, it would definitely be a win-win from a 30,000-foot view. And as we know, the women's hockey team and the men's hockey team both won gold. So the Schifrin is back on top. And Cordita D'Ambrosio, Italy. Michaela Schifrin closed her eyes, gave a deep breath, and took a big step back onto the top of an Olympic podium. The American skiing standout was a gold medalist at the Winter Games once again, and she couldn't quite believe it. Schifrin put in 2 dominant runs in gorgeous conditions amid the jagged peaks of the Dolomites to win the women's slalom by a massive 1.5 seconds, ending her 8-year medal drought at the Winter Games and showing why she is widely regarded as the greatest alpine skier of all times. Of the Sun Journal, and this is going to be from Saturday and Sunday, which is February 21st and 22nd. So, hang on a minute. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Lockport Union-Sun Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. This is the Saturday and Sunday, February 21st and 22nd issue. And they have Art Out Loud. Sterling Carroll spills his creativity at a new West Avenue location. Always colorful and creative, Sterling Carroll has reinvented himself and his business at the new location of Spill Your Creativity Culture Lab at 400 West Avenue. While continuing his entrepreneurial ventures in clothing, music, and visual arts, Carroll is now showing new sides of himself through cartoon characters that help young and old enough people learn how to express themselves. Through his alter ego, Boomy, a walking and talking boombox, Carroll continues to help kids explore their imaginations with enough pre-2K nostalgia to appeal to their parents as well. In the activity book Carroll created, Boomy walks through Lockport and past the Pine Street Bridge, inviting kids to draw, write, and even compose music. Carroll said, as he created Boomy last fall as an embodiment of the things he loves. If I were a character, what would I be? I love music, I love art, and I wanted it to be a toy, so I came up with the whole design. Boomy encourages kids to imagine their own planet and invites them to invent the creatures that inhabit it and list them. Another page asks about the music they like. Carroll's character has left from the page to become a paintable toy thanks to 3D printing and the help of his friend David Pettigrew. The figure resembles an unfinished ceramic, ready for embellishment. The idea of a persona ready to express possibilities is a manifestation of Carroll's mission to connect kids with their individual means of expression. He continues to offer the customized skate decks that have been centerpiece for the annual Until the Wheels Fall Off Summer Skate Jam and Youth Art Festival. Going to art school, you study different periods in history, he said. You experiment. You don't limit yourself so you can find your style. I love graffiti and contemporary art. I like to do abstract and cartoonish work. It's really interesting to see what comes from your mind to the paper, and if I didn't love what I do, I wouldn't be authentic. And then next in our news, there's a premiere set for the local film featuring ex-Sabre Rob Ray. In Niagara Falls, in his latest acting role, Bill Kennedy had the pleasure of sharing some screen time with legendary Buffalo Sabres tough guy, Rob Ray. As a producer working behind the scenes of the film One of the Good Ones, the former Niagara Falls City Councilman got to do something he equally enjoyed, scout locations in and around the city so that they could be used as a backdrop in several scenes. So a lot of Niagara Falls connections and relationships and friendships helped me leverage a lot of locations people can actually see, Kennedy said. There are some good Niagara Falls connections to the film. Kennedy, who has worked as an actor for years, got involved in One of the Good Ones by producing the movie after responding to a Facebook film group post from executive producer Tom Palladino, who was looking for potential shooting locations in Western New York. So Kennedy submitted several sites, many in the Falls, and Palladino and the movie's director, Julia Hora, loved what they saw. As a result, the movie's courtroom scenes were filmed at Town of Niagara Town Hall. Producers used Antonio's Banquet and Conference Center, owned and operated by the Strangito family of Niagara Falls, to portray a rehabilitation center. We have some obituaries here. Mary Bocalo passed away on February 14th, on Valentine's Day. John Dolan E. Birdwell. John Dolan Birdwell passed away on February 17th. And Brother Alan Herod, CSC, passed away on February 15th. So the Historical Society program is to focus on the Bell's aircraft Dornberger. The Historical Association of Lewiston is hosting Douglas DeCroix for its February program, Metamorphosis of a War Criminal, Walter Dornberger, Bell's rocket genius. That was at 7 p.m. Today at the Lutheran Church of the Messiah Fellowship at 915 Oneida Street. Historian Douglas DeCroix will examine Dornberger's role in the development of these Nazi terror weapons, as well as how he managed to land his lofty post with Bell aircraft. Without warning, at 6:44 p.m. on September 8th, 1944, a massive explosion rocked Staley Road in the London suburb of Chiswick. 3 civilians were killed and 19 were injured in what later turned out to be the first strike on London by Hitler's ultimate weapon, the V-2 rocket. On May 5, 1945, a group of Nazi officers surrendered to members of the U.S. 44th Infantry Division near the Australian village of Schwald. Among them were Werner von Braun, who would go on to play a critical role in NASA's manned space program, and General Major Dr. Walter Dornberger, future Vice President and Chief Scientist for Bell Aircraft Corporation in Niagara Falls. A familiar presenter to HAL members, Doug DeCroix has served as Executive Director of Western New York Heritage Incorporated, the nonprofit publishers of Western New York Heritage Magazine, since 2009. His contributions to regional and national history have included several nationally aired historical documentaries produced by WNED-TV and the History Channel, as well as numerous articles and several thematic books published by Western New York Heritage. In recognition of his contributions to regional history, Doug was selected to receive the prestigious Owen B. Osberger Award by the Buffalo History Museum in October of 2015, and the Image Greater Buffalo Recognition Award in February 2026. In 2024, his efforts to publish legends of the Chautauqua-Erie Grape Belt were recognized with the Jim Finkel Industry Award, presented by the New York Wine and Grape Foundation. What happens next after the Supreme Court slapped down Trump's tariffs? Well, Washington, there's little that Donald Trump has cherished more in his second term than tariffs, a symbol of his imperialist approach to the presidency. He has raised and lowered them at will, rewriting the rules of global commerce and daring anyone to stop him. Now that may be over, the victim of a stunning rebuke from the Supreme Court on Friday. After more than a year of expanding his power, Trump had run into a rare limit. It was a loss that Trump couldn't quite accept, and the president claimed he would use other laws to impose alternate tariffs. He even said that the end of this particular legal battle would bring a great certainty to the economy. But if anything, Friday opens a new chapter in Trump's ongoing tariffs drama and raised urgent questions about his ability to make good on his promises of an economic revival. The ruling will most likely prolong chaos over international trade through the midterm elections, with much unknown about Trump's next steps and whether roughly $175 billion in import taxes that the Supreme Court struck down will be refunded. The president chose, as he often does, to scorn the patriotism of those who disagree with him. He said the ruling was deeply disappointing and ridiculous, adding that he was absolutely ashamed of the 6 Supreme Court justices who ruled against him for not having the courage to do what's right for our country. Trump described the justices as fools and lapdogs who are very unpatriotic and disloyal to our Constitution. The president said on social media Friday night that he had signed an executive order enabling him to bypass Congress and impose a 10% tax on imports from around the world. The government would begin national security investigations in order to charge new tariffs on specific products as well. The 10% tariffs are legally capped at 150 days, but Trump brushed off a question about the limit by saying, "We have a right to do pretty much what we want to do." All of that means Trump's tariff timelines are likely to collide with the midterm elections for control of the House and the Senate. So, Trump has learned of the Supreme Court's decision during a private meeting with governors in the morning when he was handed a note acknowledging to two people with knowledge of the president's reaction who spoke on the condition of anonymity. They said he called it a disgrace. Another person who was briefed on the conversation disclosed that Trump said he has to do something about these courts. The meeting with the governors ended shortly thereafter. Looming over Trump's legal debacle has been voters' frustration with the tariffs, which have been linked to higher prices and a slowdown in hiring. The president has consistently misrepresented his tariffs, claiming despite evidence to the contrary that foreign governments would pay them and that the revenues would be sufficient to pay down the national debt and give taxpayers a dividend check. After Trump announced worldwide tariffs last April, an AP NORC poll found that 76% of Americans said the policies would increase the cost of consumer goods, a worrisome sign for a president elected on the promise of addressing years of inflation. Another poll conducted in January said about 6 to 10 Americans said that Trump had gone too far imposing new tariffs on other countries. So Trump used the tariffs to reshape the Republicans' trade agenda. Trump's aggressive use of tariffs have left many Republican lawmakers uneasy, publicly and privately, forcing them to defend what they were essentially tax increases on the American public and businesses. So here's some cheers and cheers. Here's a cheer. We heard a lot last year about how a drop in border crossings from Canada was going to hurt the local economy. Well, in terms of 2025 sales tax collections, the news was good. Niagara County saw in excess of 5% growth in sales tax revenues, coming in at $102,944,000, almost $5.5 million increase over 2024. Niagara County legislator Mark Hill credits the county's continuing efforts to diversify its economic base. Early in 2025, some were expressing concerns the sales tax revenue would take a significant hit due to a decrease in Canadian traffic, he said. Instead, we ended up with a very robust year thanks to aggressive tourism, marketing in the Northeast, and our economic development efforts to expand the commercial base. The key is having a diverse economy so no one sector can overly impact sales tax revenue. Worth noting is Niagara Falls hotel, restaurant, and utility sales tax receipts. They also increased from 2024 to 2025, but only about $252,000. And then we have another cheer. There's still a couple of days left to stop by the Niagara Falls Convention Center and check on the Greater Niagara Fishing Expo, which wraps up on Sunday. It's the largest fishing show in New York State and is considered one of the premier angling events in the Great Lakes region, with more than 170 exhibitors involved. The Greater Niagara Fishing Expo is a place where every angler, no matter their experience level, can come to learn, connect, and get inspired for the season ahead, said Frank Campbell, Director of Outdoor Promotions at Destination Niagara, USA. Fishing education is the heart of what makes this event is all about, and that's what makes it truly unique. Tickets and seminar schedules are available at NiagaraFishingExpo.com. And another cheer, the 914th Air Refueling Wing held their groundbreaking ceremony Tuesday for the $6.3 million Boom Operators Weapon System Trainer Facility, located in Building 321 on the Niagara Falls Air Reserve Station. The full-motion simulator will be in a large box on hydraulic shocks, enabling pilots to practice flying, taking off and landing, as well as refueling other aircraft. And then there's a jeer. Not good. This isn't a knock on Canal Fest, but we're still looking forward to spending part of the summer enjoying a premier Western New York event. But we can say with certainty that this year won't feel the same. First off, this won't be a Twin Cities festival. It's moving entirely to North Tonawanda this year. Secondly, the 8-day festival kicking off on July 19th isn't taking place at the Erie Canal in North Tonawanda. It's moving along the Niagara River to Grandwick Park. The festival has long stretched along both sides of the Erie County Canal that separates Erie and Niagara counties, and we've seen changes in recent years, but this is a big one. We're sure we'll still love all the events, the rides, and activities that go along with Canal Fest. We're not sure we're going to miss all the downtown North Tonawanda and the city of Tonawanda has to offer along the canal in spots like Weber Street and Gateway Park. Here's some interesting thing. It's a handy-dandy aluminum foil. Mary Hunt, she's everyday cheapskate she is. So using aluminum foil to line cookie sheets or to keep a steak hot while you finish getting everything ready to eat are nothing new when it comes to useful household tips. But there's many other uses for aluminum foil you haven't heard of. You can clean your silver. Line a bucket or a bowl with aluminum foil. Add the silver items you want to polish into the bucket. Fill the vessel with about 2 tablespoons of washing soda or soda ash, and 2 tablespoons of ordinary table salt, 1 cup of plain white vinegar, and 2 cups of boiling water. Leave the silver for 15 minutes. The tarnish that covered your beautiful silver is going to be gone. You can protect your eyeglasses. Those who color their hair know that it involves time for the color to process. Time to just sit there and wait. You want to catch up on your reading, but you can't read without your specs. If you put them on, they're sure to end up stained by the color. Solution: wrap the temples of your glasses, the side arms, with a piece of aluminum foil. This won't wreck the color, but it'll protect your glasses. And you can foil thieves this way too. You take your car keys, they have a keyless start system via a wireless connection. Well, this thing only works when you're within about 2 meters of your car. Otherwise, it won't connect. So unfortunately, clever thieves have found a way to hack the signal, which means they don't need your keys to take your car. So the cheapest and easiest way to foil their plans is to wrap your car's remote key fob in a piece of aluminum foil before you put it in your pocket or bag. This disrupts the signal. Of course, you can keep your oven clean. You can, when preparing to bake a gorgeous pie, lasagna, or other casserole, you can catch all those messy drips before they mess up the oven by laying a sheet or 2 of aluminum foil over the rack below. And then a quick funnel. If you need a funnel, you can make one out of aluminum foil. You can scrub the barbecue with it. Crunch it up into a ball and scrub your barbecue. You can scrub your pots the same way. You can sharpen your scissors. You could iron. Place a sheet of aluminum foil underneath the cover of your ironing board. The foil will reflect the heat coming off your iron, which speeds up the ironing. And FYI, you have undoubtedly noticed that one side of aluminum foil is shinier than the other. Maybe you see the shiny side as the right side, and always have it facing out. According to the folks at Reynolds Wrap, the different appearance of each side of aluminum foil is simply a request of how it's manufactured. The performance of the foil is the same on both sides. Either way, there's no difference. And also, there's a kaleidoscope of oddball tomatoes to try. So if you want to send starting time is right about around the corner, and that means it's time to think about tomatoes. I can think of no better summer meal than a thick slice of homegrown ox heart between 2 slices of white bread adorned only with salt, pepper, and maybe a couple of basil leaves. I'm also partial to beefsteak, porterhouse, brandy wine, Big Sack, and Big Boy, all delicious and all red. The way many of us have been unconditioned to believe tomatoes should be, but there's a whole kaleidoscope of tomatoes you can grow in your yard. There's a Cherokee purple. It was the first other colored tomato I grew. I didn't particularly find the heirloom's grayish-brown skin or matching flesh appetizing. My 8-foot-tall intermittent plant didn't produce as proficiently as most of my other varieties, but its sweet, earthy, and somewhat smoky flavor and juicy consistency made for a delicious sandwich. There's a black Krim, and this odd indeterminate Crimean heirloom, introduced to North American home gardens in 1990, is slightly easier on the eyes. Its sweet, salty, tangy flavor intensifies when allowed to ripen fully to the vine, so resist the urge to harvest prematurely. And its unusually reddish-gray color turns you off. Take a bite and you'll get over it. Then there's the Black Beauty tomatoes. It has skin the color of blackberries and deep red. Meaty flesh, is considered the darkest tomato in the world and has the antitoxin content to prove it. Although it's a hybrid variety, Black Beauty has been stabilized through selective breeding. There's a Ananas noir, also known as the English translation of black pineapple. This tomato variety is the happiest looking of the bunch. Almost tie-dyed in appearance, the green, yellow, and red tricolored hybrid popped up naturally in 1990s Belgium when a pineapple tomato crossed with a black tomato growing nearby. Oh, there's a yellow pear tomato, a Voyager tomato, and a green zebra tomato. So, think about that if you want to plant some tomatoes. In other news this issue, all truckers are going to be required to take driver's tests in English. All truckers and bus drivers will have to take their commercial driver's license test in English as the Trump administration expands its aggressive campaign to improve safety in the industry and get unqualified drivers off the road. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy announced that the latest effort Friday to ensure the drivers meet the federal requirements to understand English well enough to read road signs and communicate with law enforcement officials. Florida already started administering this test in English. Currently, many states allow drivers to take their license tests in other languages, even though they are required to demonstrate English's proficiency. California orders tests in 20 other languages, and Duffy said that a number of states have hired other companies to administer commercial driver's license tests, and those companies aren't enforcing the standards that drivers are supposed to meet to demonstrate their driving and English skills. These latest enforcement efforts come just after the Transportation Department said that 557 driving schools should close because they failed to meet basic safety standards. The department has been aggressively going after states that hand out commercial driver's licenses to immigrants who shouldn't have qualified for them ever since a fatal crash in August. A truck driver who Duffy says wasn't authorized to be in the U.S. made an illegal U-turn and caused a crash in Florida that killed 3 people. Other fatal crashes since then, including one in Indiana that killed 4 members of an Amish family earlier this month, have only heightened concerns. So Duffy says that truckers should be well qualified. States are expected to ensure drivers can speak English before giving them a commercial license, and then law enforcement is supposed to check drivers' language skills during any traffic stops or inspections. Drivers who can't communicate effectively are supposed to be pulled off the road. A recent federal effort involving 8,215 inspections led to nearly 500 drivers being disqualified because of their English skills. California initially resisted enforcing the English rules, but the state recently pulled more than 600 drivers off the highway. So Duffy said every American wants drivers who gets behind the wheel of a big rig to be well qualified to handle those vehicles. But he said that for too long, the problem in the trucking industry were allowed to rot, and no one was paid attention to it for decades. You're listening to a reading of articles and features from the Lockport Union-Sun Journal and the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. And we have some cartoons here, too. There's one that's called Drabble, and there's a dog named Wally sitting in his dog bed, and the master comes over and says, "Excuse me," and he goes, "Aha, there's my remote." It was in the dog bed. And he says to his wife, "Anytime something goes missing, I immediately know where to look for it." And the woman says, "Wally's bed is like a round lost and found." Huh. So the dog kept taking stuff. And Mother Goose and Grimm. Mother Goose is reading a crossword puzzle. She said, "Grimm, I need a 5-letter word for kind of hut." And Grimm says, Pizza. He's a dog. He's a pizza. And then Tigger is two little boys with baseball. One's got a baseball hat on, the other one doesn't. And the one with the baseball hat has a dog. And he says to him, "What's a bandage for, Hugo?" And Hugo has a bandage on his ear. He says, "Because I cut my finger." And he's got one on his finger, too. He says, "I mean the one stuck on your ear." He said, "Oh, that one. That was the first one I was trying to put on my finger. Accidentally missed and hit his ear." Back and do the 20th of February. Is the century of Black History. February is Black History Month. What began as a Negro Week in 1926 has evolved into Black History Month, now approaching its 100th anniversary. As a milestone nears, a University at Buffalo scholar is encouraging renewed reflection on the origins of the observance and the work that still lies ahead. Scholars including LeGarrette King, director of the Center for K-12 Black History and Racial Literacy Education and UB's Graduate School of Education, credited Carter G. Woodson with the creation of Negro History Week and its eventual expansion into Black History Month. Woodson's groundbreaking work made Black history viable, accessible, and integral to the nation's story, King said. His vision established a tradition of celebrating and preserving the legacies of Black people who shaped the nation. In other news, St. Gobain shares its plans for Norpro expansion in Wheatfield. St. Gobain is still moving ahead with expansion plans for its 6600 Walmore Road facility in Wheatfield, which are now looking more concrete. The Paris-based company, through their subsidiary Norpro, showed off its new facility plans for manufacturing catalytic carriers to the Westfield Planning Board on Wednesday. The $41.5 million, 91,000 square foot addition to the site could be on land that has 350,000 square feet of decommissioned buildings. Present plans have the building at 340 feet by 246 feet with a 40-foot high height. Those catalysts are used in the petrochemical industry to promote chemical reactions to increase their yield and efficiency, said Edward Brunot, Norpro's director of manufacturing, noting these are similar to how catalytic converters in cars work, yet they would be used by companies all over the world. The existing 625,372 square foot facility manufactures synthetic abrasives like sandpaper. This would be St. Gobain's second North American facility that manufactures catalytic products by Byron, Texas, with project manager Chris Cicerelli previously telling the Gazette this would accommodate another expansion of 300 square feet. Wow. News: the North Tonawanda Dingus Day Parade is to see some changes this year. So the 6th Annual Dingus Day Parade and After Party will take place on April 6th, with the parade stepping off at 5 p.m., according to North Tonawanda Neighborhood Watch. This year's events include several updates designed to keep the celebration free for attendees, sustainable, and supportive of local nonprofits. The parade route has been changed. Participants will line up on Thompson Street between Oliver Street and Lincoln Avenue before traveling along Oliver, Goundry, and Webster Streets, crossing the Renaissance Bridge into the city of Tonawanda. The parade will conclude near Canal Street, where the free after-party will take place at the Canal Street Pavilion. This year's Great Parade will be led by Grand Marshal Rick Valkowski. He has spent more than 6 decades preserving and promoting Western New York's music and entertainment heritage, and is the founder of the Buffalo Music Hall of Fame, owner of Buffalo History Books, coordinator of Tonawanda's Gateway Harbors Concepts, and the author of numerous books on local music and history dedicated to sharing the stories and legacy of Buffalo and Western New York. I'm honored to be named this year's Grand Marshal, said Valkowski. Polish tradition is a proud part of my heritage, and my Dingus Day roots run deep through my family's involvement with the Chopin Singing Society, where Buffalo's modern public celebrations began. Registration is now open for those interested in marching in the parade. And new this year, a contest will award prizes to participating entries. Community members, businesses, and organizations can sign up through the North Tonawanda Dingus Day website. Following the parade, the celebration continues at Canal Street with live music by Captain Tom and the Hooligans, a beer tent hosted by Sweeney Host Volunteer Fire Company No. 7, and food from the Lions Club of the Tonawandas, Vietnam Veterans of America Chapter 77, Twin Cities Elk Lodge, 860, and Coffee and Stone Cafe. In keeping with the tradition of giving back, this year's featured charity is Nickel City Canine Rescue, which will be on site with raffles and rescue dogs. They will also be at the Dingus Day pre-party at Fatty Beer on April 4th, with $1 from every draft beer purchase donated to the cause. And then, again, there was a Falls man who pleaded guilty to receiving a meth shipment in the mail. A 70-year-old Niagara Falls man faces up to 40 years in prison after pleading guilty in a case involving meth being sent to his house through the U.S. Postal Service. Charles Barker, 70, pleaded guilty Wednesday before U.S. District Judge Lawrence J. Villardo to possession with intent to distribute 5 grams or more of methamphetamine, which carries a minimum penalty of 5 years in prison, a maximum of 40 years, and a fine of $5 million. Assistant U.S. Attorney Matt Klaus, who is handling the case, said that on June 13, 2025, the U.S. Postal Service was alerted to a parcel being shipped from Arizona to Niagara Falls that was consistent with parcels containing narcotics. So postal investigations executed a search warrant on the parcel, which was found to contain approximately 703 grams of crystal methamphetamine on June 17, 2025. A controlled delivery of the parcel was conducted to the 77th Street residence of Barker, who was listed as the recipient. So Barker was arrested after accepting the parcel, which had been replaced with sham methamphetamine, and during a search of the residence, investigators recovered quantities of crystal methamphetamine and cocaine, a shotgun, and $25,821 in cash. The plea is the result of an investigator by the Drug Enforcement Administration under the Director of Special Agent in Charge, Vahara Islam, New York Field Division, and the United States Postal Inspection Service under the direction of Acting Inspector in Charge Nicholas Busarelli, Boston Division. Sentencing scheduled for June 23rd. Also in this issue, Moderna says that the FDA will consider a new flu shot. So in Washington, the Food and Drug Administration will consider whether to approve Moderna's new flu vaccine. After all, resolving a dispute that had blocked the company's application for the first-of-its-kind shot. Moderna announced that the change Wednesday, about a week after revealing the FDA's vaccine chief was refusing to review the new vaccine, made with Nobel Prize-winning mRNA technology. The dispute centered over a 40,000-person clinical trial that concluded that Moderna's new vaccine was more effective in adults aged 50 and older than one of the standard flu shots used today. And the FDA's rare refusal to file letter, Vaccine Director Dr. Vinny Prasad faulted the trial for not including another brand specifically recommended for people 65 and older. You're listening to a reading of articles and features from the Niagara Frontier radio reading service of the Lockport Union-Sun Journal. We have a couple of obituaries in this issue. On June 4th, or June 17th, rather, February 17th, Joan Glenn passed away. She had been in hospice. And then Bruce J. Scott, who was 77 of Lockport, passed away on February 15th. And in our arts and entertainment of this issue, the Epic Church blends genres, generations, and grit. Epic Church has been coming to Buffalo since the early stages of his career, so his fans have seen him in his Ensembles evolved from an outlaw county bar band to an opener who was better than the headliner to the main event. Church's latest Buffalo performance on February 13th added another Western New York chapter to his storied career. At one stage of his career, Church appeared to be on the road to being the Bruce Springsteen of country music. So the comparisons were inevitable, given that the title and subject of one of his biggest hits is a homage to the boss. Here called Dear Annie, and here's a couple letters, or one letter anyway. Dear Annie, my mother-in-law of 17 years has always had too much stuff in her house, but as years go by, it's getting worse. Her basement is a memorial of her children's old belongings, tools, and canning jars. Every closet's crammed with jackets and clothes. Her house isn't dirty per se, but every space, every windowsill is crowded with dried flowers, dust, glass knickknacks, and photos. She's always been this way. Her children are now 50 and 46, both with families of their own, and she also lost her husband of 50 years last year. I tried talking to my husband and explaining that this will eventually become his and his siblings' responsibility, and it's dangerous for a 75-year-old mother to be living like this. But neither child wants to address it with her. How can we lovingly relate to this woman that she needs to start getting rid of the clutter? We need guidance, and she's a regular reader of your column. So she said, Dear Hoarding Honors, what you're describing isn't really about clutter, it's about comfort, control, and grief. Your mother-in-law may have always been this way, but after losing her spouse, familiar objects can feel like anchors. Asking her to simply get rid of things is unlikely to land. That's why this conversation needs to come from her children, not you. And it needs to start with safety, not sentiment. Frame it around clear walkways, fall risks, and emergency exits. Not what she owns. Start small and concrete. One room and one windowsill, one room at a time, rather than making sweeping demands. This won't be a quick fix, but avoiding it now will only make things harder later. Caring for an aging parent often means pressing gently, even when it's uncomfortable. There you go. And we have some cartoons here. So in Drabble, the father is making himself an ice cream sundae. And he's putting whipped cream on it, chocolate syrup, some sprinkles. And he takes it out to his wife. He says, don't worry, this ice cream has half the fat. She said, your head has the other half. It's a great big sundae he's given her. And in Tiger's friend, they both have baseball caps on. And Tiger's got a little dog that he has with him all the time, a little black and white dog. And his friend said, I decided to let my hair grow. And Tiger says, how can you stop it? And the kid says, your father looks like he found a way. So I don't know how it was he found a way. Oh, he cut his hair. I don't know how he's letting it grow. So Mother Goose and Grimm, there's two dogs in the reading, and one says, you don't believe in horoscopes, do you? He asked the dog. Dog said, heck no. We Virgos are very skeptical. And we only have a few minutes left, so let's go back to the February 17th. They have a homeless services was expanded. The New York State may soon guarantee homeless families placed in hotels the same service as those in shelters, including help finding housing, meals, and childcare. The proposal from the Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance follows a New York Focus and ProPublica investigation that found hotels have become the state's predominant response to homelessness outside of New York City. Counties have placed tens of thousands of adults and children in often dilapidated hotels, the investigation found, and many people have been cut off from the services promised by the shelter system. The proposed regulations, published Wednesday, January 28th, will go through a 60-day public comment period before OTDA, which oversees county social service offices, decides whether to adopt, change, or drop them. Each county could be required to submit plans for delivering the support services as soon as the rules are adopted. Counties would also have to enforce limits on overcrowding and ensure that children don't have to share beds with adults. Everyone placed in emergency housing really should have a fair shot at stability no matter where they're staying. And so I definitely believe that the state needs to consider and make the rules of change a priority. So, Chris Gersat, stepping back from role of Salvation Army at Lockport Corps, he was looking back across the years. Chris Gersat remembers the first after-school programs he organized for the Salvation Army Lockport Corps. We played sharks and swimmers, he said, of a gym activity. Children paddled on scooter boards while he sprawled out on a furniture dolly to swim after them. Gym mats were applied at one end. The beach was the mats, and I was the shark, he said. They had to make it to the beach. Pulling out the dolly, he demonstrated his Superman position and sense of humor by rapidly gliding across the space. Working as the Corps' Community Center Director since 2008, this is Gersat's last week as a full-time employee of the Salvation Army, an organization that turned his life around personally and professionally. Gersat began binging drinking and using marijuana as a teen, and after a fellow student threw a rock that blinded him in one eye, he said, it changed spots for me, he said. A basketball is never more than 90 feet away. Though his drinking eventually put him in a hospital in his 20s, Gersat said basketball was always a motivator. Eventually, he was invited to join a basketball league at the Salvation Army with the condition of regular church attendance. It eventually led me to giving my life to Jesus, he said. I wanted to do the best I could for God. Here's some local and national news. There were 3 killed, including a suspect in a shooting during a youth hockey game. In Pawtucket, Rhode Island, 3 people, including the suspect, were fatally shot during a Rhode Island youth hockey game Monday, authorities said. Pawtucket Police Chief Tina Goncalves told reporters that 3 other victims are hospitalized in critical condition. It appears that this may be a targeted event, that it may be a family dispute, she said. She did not provide details about the suspect or the ages of those who were killed, though she said it appeared that both victims were adults. She said investigators are trying to piece together what happened and speak with witnesses of the shooting incident. And we have a few more comics here. So, overboard, the dog sitting on a chair, man sitting at a drafting table, and he's drawing. And the dog is thinking, so, if you drew a bunch of seagulls pooping on my head, will little kids think that's funny? And the man said, I hope so. The dog said, then I'm in. And the dog walks away. And he said, Louie, so easy to write for. I guess Louie is the name of the dog. And then Mother Goose Grim, her dog, is walking through the woods. And he said, nothing ruins a Friday more than realizing that it's only Tuesday. There you go. And then in Drabble, who we read again, that little kid, once they're inside the house, his father's talking to him and his sister, and the dog's sitting on top of the couch. And it says, once a week we'll have a family night where we enjoy wholesome activities together. No computers, phones, or televisions. Why not? One of the kids say. Because we all need to cut down on our screen time. And the dog is there, and he puts scratches, and there's patches on the screen. The dog says, darn. And Tiger's walking in the house, and his little brother's walking ahead of him. And he said, Puckhead, is there paint on the bottom of your shoes? He said, not anymore. He's walking across his mother's carpet, leaving paint footprints, until there isn't any because he wore them all off on the footprints. So then there's another cartoon called Baldo, and Baldo's riding with his friend, and they're riding on a bike, it looks like maybe in the park, going over a bridge. And his friend said, do I have Feminis Botanica is weird? And Baldo said, dude, yes, you have to go. Finima is creepy. I need backup if she's asked me with a love spell. Wow, maybe she's not the creepy one. So obviously, Finnemon's Botanica is a girl. It sounds like.
The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another